Hello, my name is João Carmo. I am associate professor in the University of São Paulo in São Carlos. This presentation uh, deals with wireless medical devices for deep brain stimulation. I belong to the metamaterials, microwaves, and optics group from the University of São Paulo. This landscape is the Seven Cities Lagoon in Azores, Portugal. This presentation is organized according to this outline. First, it will be discussed the deep brain stimulation or DBS concept. Then, the acquisition circuits used on DBS will be presented, followed by the presentation of neurostimulation circuits for deep brain stimulation. Then wireless solutions will be presented, followed by CMOS micro devices for deep brain stimulation. So, deep brain stimulation is a kind of treatment based on electrophysiology, which consists on stimulating a given region of the brain through electrical pulses. It is a therapy that requires a surgery for implantation of an electrode in a given region of the brain. Here on left we can see a procedure which consists in the insertion of implantable tips with electrodes in the extremities. We can see here in the X-ray the electrodes. These electrodes are connected to the neural stimulator through wires. The neural stimulator is also known as a neural pacemaker. So these electrodes they conduct an electrical current to modulate or interrupt abnormal patterns in the neural signaling, also called as action DBS action mechanism. This electric current is supplied by a pulses generator or neural stimulator. The neural stimulator is implanted in the thorax region, as we can see here. Then the wires are used to connect neural stimulator to the tip and then to the electrodes. We can see here the tip and the electrodes in the extremities. On the right, we can see an example of a commercial deep brain stimulation system from Boston Scientific. We have in the middle, we can see the neural stimulator. This is the one which will be implanted in the thorax region. Then we can see here the remote control to make the pulses modulation. This device is standalone. It uses battery, so it requires a charger to recharge the batteries. And here we can see the electrodes. The electrodes present as annular shape, and these tips, the tips are flexible to facilitate their insertion within the brain. It must be noted that cerebral cells, they are insensible to pain. Contrary to our skin, the neural tissue don't have any sensitivity to pain. Deep brain stimulation is widely used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease to reduce the shaking, the body's shaking, and widely used on the more in the treatment of morbid obesity and essential tremor as well as in dystonia. So let's see an example uh, before and after applying deep brain stimulation. So let's see before and after the surgery of deep brain stimulation. We can see here on left the shaking hand of the patient before the surgery, and on the right the almost steady hand after the surgery. Normally, the current DBS is open loop, which means that the pulses are being widely supplied without any feedback information. This is known as open loop DBS. A new DBS paradigm is the closed loop deep brain stimulation. Let's analyze the few types of deep brain stimulation. So we estimate that the continuous control of deep brain stimulation or open loop deep brain stimulation has an efficiency of 75% in the treatment of motion disturbances. However, uh, it, we note that this kind of application on psychiatric diseases, these don't respond so well, which gave margin for the development of more sophisticated control systems for such applications. So this gave origin to the closed loop deep brain stimulation. So with the closed loop control through the monitoring of signals, it is possible to adjust the stimulation parameters, which ensures the patient will receive the necessary signal configuration. So in literature we find these five control modes here. First, we have a simple and continuous control, which the stimulation signal has fixed parameters, so this kind of control don't have feedback. On B, we have an intermittent control in which the signal is characterized by sets of pulses, uh, separated sets of pulses by a fixed period. In this case, the amplitude and the pulse width are also constant and don't have feedback. On C, we we have a responsive control, uh, an on-off control with fixed amplitude, which interrupt or promotes the stimulation, interrupt or promoted stimulation according to a set point and an error margin. This approach has feedback. Then we have on the an adaptive control, which where we have the signal control to stimulate through the adjust of amplitude and pulse width. So we here we have we can adjust the amplitude as well as the pulse width. This kind of stimulation as feedback. Finally, we have in the last option we have the closed loop control characterized by a dynamic control of the stimulation signal. It possesses two or more feedback signals. So we can see here the first two approaches are unidirectional or open loop, and then the last third, these approaches are both bidirectional. Currently, we have a project to develop deep brain stimulation solutions. The target final application is to implement the chip in the tip concept, where it is decided to integrate the electrodes and the electronic models for the deep brain stimulation. We are developing electronic models based on CMOS and commercial off-the-shelf components. The interest of this research is to on a first approach use current available electrodes, which are circular. They have a circular shape or annular shape. This kind of control is not well directionated due to the shape of electrodes. In the future, with more directional electrodes, both to acquire signals and to stimulate, we can have a more directed control and stimulation. So let's see few circuits for acquisition of biopotentials. If we are interested to implement closed loop deep brain stimulation, we need acquiring neural signals. For that, we need low noise amplifiers. One possible architecture is this one. This is a differential amplifier. To promote gain, we have a pair of capacitors C1 and another pair of capacitors C2, which means that if C1 is much higher than C2, the small signals gain at middle frequencies is C1 divided by C2, so the gain is adjusted by these two capacitors. We cannot forget that this operational amplifier normally this amplifier have at least one pole. We can see here an example. In blue we have the open loop gain, and the open loop gain decreases as the frequency increases. Then the feedback gain is the open loop the gain divided by this expression. We must note that this feedback factor beta is also frequency dependent, which means that the closed loop we can see here two plots for two different C1 capacitors. We can for C1 for the higher C1 we have an higher gain, okay, but as the gain increases the bandwidth decreases. We can prove that the product gain bandwidth is constant, e.g. it's independent of the gain. This is the feedback gain in the middle frequencies. This zero is due to this C1, which cuts the DC component. So this amplifier is very good for to acquire signals when we want to decouple the DC component. However, we cannot forget the existence of the zero in the origin. Then we have here a pole. It's not the dominant pole of the operational amplifier. This pole is given by 1 divided by 2 PR C2. So the pole frequency must be smallest as possible, which means that the product RC2 must be the highest as possible. So let's see one prototype implemented by our research group. This prototype was implemented with the commercial off-the-shelf components. It has 4 input channels. It has a USB charger to recharge the lithium-ion battery, and uses an ESP8266 to control the acquisition and for wireless communication. It was a first prototype. It was implemented using a flexible print circuit board for a better compactness. It was not a good prototype, so we made a new prototype, a second prototype with commercial off-the-shelf components. We have here the block diagram of the analog of the system. We have the low noise amplifier with 33 dB of gain, an analog multiplexer, a buffer to isolate multiplexer from the active notch filter. This active notch filter, its gain is 0 dB, don't have gain. Then we have an active low pass filter with gain with 21 dB. The analog to digital conversion is made inside the ESP32, which has wireless transmission both on Bluetooth 4 and the Wi-Fi. We use the Bluetooth. This internal ADC has a resolution of 12 bits. This ADC accepts signals with the amplitude between 0 and 3.3 volts, contrary to the ADC of ESP8266, which only have a resolution of 10 bits. then it also allows the amplitude to be input amplitude to be limited to 1 volt. The ESP32 allows a full range up to 33 volt. So we can see here the photograph of the second prototype. It has two input channels, two stimulation channels, and uses the ESP32 to control the acquisition and for wireless communication. We can this prototype is also based on flexible PCB. We can see here the ESP, the stimulation circuits, and the acquisition circuits, and we have here the connector to the electrodes. We made a few tests to the analog part. So for we have here the combined the frequency response of a selected acquisition channel. It combines all the chain, including the notch and so on. So the total gain is 33 dB, and this gain is covers the range between 7 Hz and 10 kilohertz, and then the gain starts to decrease. The notch is an active notch filter for 60 Hz. I believe in Europe is 50 Hz. The quality factor is controlled by these resistors R4 and R5. We can see here the transfer function for few quality factors. The R1, R2, R3, C1, C3, C2 is the notch itself. So the frequency of the notch is given by this formula, where R1 and R2 is equal to 2R3, and C2 and C3 are equals and equal to C1 divided by 2. So let's see a few neurostimulation circuits. We selected few circuits from the literature, from this paper. This circuit, we can see here the connection to the electrodes. The frequency of the pulse is given by this formula. It depends of CF and RF. The duty cycle depends of CPRP and CF-RF, RF-CF, CP-RF, and the current, the amplitude is given by this formula. This current is expressed in ampere. So we have 0.617 divided by RC plus 15 microampere. Another proposal for neural stimulation it can be found in this paper. It uses an H-bridge. So we can see here the simplified circuit. It uses two current sources. You can see here the circuit, full circuit. We can see another work based on an Howland charge pump circuit. We can see here the Howland current pump. Our prototype is based on the Howland charge pump circuit. We can see here the circuit. This ZL is the electrode, and this potential is is the reference potential. So the current depends on the inside of Vin, and depends on these values R2, R3 and R4. It must be noted that R3, this more plus R4 divided by R2 must be equal to R1 divided by R2. Normally this is equal to 1. Oops. So we made a few tests. We can see here saline solution with 0.9% of salt. We put it here in series a resistor of 1 kilo ohm and another resistor of 10 kilo ohm. The measurements allow it to observe a resolution of 10 microampere. So the A is the theoretical curve, B is with what is the experimental experiments with 1 kilo ohm resistance, and C is the experiments done with a resistance of 10 kilo ohms. They all agree well when we use a sine wave, and again when we use a triangular wave. The currents were tuned from 0 up to 700 microampere. We can see here the prototype and connector. We can see a printed in 3D a case. Four signals were generated using the internal digital to analog converter of the ESP32. So let's see few signals acquired with 15 kilo ohm resistance. So this we were able to generate signals with arbitrary pulse shape. We can see here this the amplitude is 322 microampere and minus 322 microampere. This time interval is 10 milliseconds, 10 millisecond, 10 millisecond, and the frequency, the pulse frequency is 10 Hertz. We can see another measurement. Here we decreased the negative amplitude. Here we nulled the negative amplitude, and here we increased the amplitude and increased 10 times the pulse duration, and here we applied pulses with 5 Hertz frequency. We also applied the sinusoidal shapes. We can see here again this is 20 milliseconds. Now we introduce here a dead zone, 10 milliseconds of dead zone. We kept the frequency at 10 Hertz. Here we increased the frequency to 50 Hertz and removed the dead zones. Then here we have another signal with sinusoidal shape. The amplitude, positive amplitude is 322 microampere, and the negative amplitude is minus 32 microampere. The pulse frequency is 10 Hertz and the duration is 20 milliseconds. All of these signals were applied on a load resistance of 15 kilo ohm. Now let's see a few wireless solution. The work by Pinel uses a CC2500 working at 2.4 gigahertz with the NMS minimum shift keying modulation. We can see here the wireless model for the deep brain stimulation and the receiver module. Both is based on the CC2500. They transmitted packets. The packets as 8 bytes for preamble, 2 bytes for synchronizing, 1 byte for addressing, and 12 bytes for the payload, and finally 2 bytes for the cyclic redundancy check. These 12 bytes were used to transmit 4 samples from 4 acquisition channels, each one with 16 bits. Our solution is based on the ESP2232 to control the acquisition to transmit signals. The ESP has 2 cores, one to control the neurostimulator and another to control the acquisition and transmission. The packets are transmitted through Bluetooth 4. The packet has a length of 100 samples with 12 bits. Once again, we can see here the ESP32 stimulation circuits and acquisition circuits, each one controlled by one core of the ESP32. Now, let's see few solutions based on CMOS micro devices. We have under current projects to develop electronic modules to develop these blocks, low noise amplifiers, the notch filter, the analog to digital converter. This ADC is based on an asynchronous architecture. The stimulation circuits, a chopper stabilizing circuits, and the tunable low-pass filter. Of course, the analog multiplexer was also designed. The idea is to design the electronic modules and to integrate with power management and the RF and the interface circuits. These blocks are commercial. These ones are the ones to be designed. So we fabricated the first prototype in TSMC 180 nanometers CMOS. The low noise, we have here the schematic of the low noise amplifier. It's basically almost equal to the previous circuit. However, we don't have an operational amplifier, but a NOTA, no operational transconductance amplifier. These capacitors are its order of magnitude is picofarad, so we need resistors of teraohm to have a pole very close to the origin. So we don't find teraohm resistors. We must implement them using pseudo resistors. These pseudo resistors are implemented using PMOS, in a series of PMOS. In this circuit, C1 is equal to 20 picofarad and C2 equal to 200 femtofarads, which means that the theoretical gain is 100 or 20 dB. So the OTA, this is the schematic of the OTA. Basically, these circuits convert this in plus minus in minus. So we have here a differential voltage. Let's write pen. Okay, we have here VD. So we have a differential voltage as input, and the output is a current Eout. This capacitor don't makes part of this circuit of the OTA. Basically, Eout, let's generate. Eout is equal to Gm VD. So it converts a differential voltage on current. Of course, ideally, if we use this circuit on an open loop configuration, ideally this will not work because the current must closes from anywhere. So the most obvious solution is to put a capacitor as a load. So let's see, if we have here a given voltage, we have here a given current. So the variation of the voltage at the output will be Eout divided by C multiplied by time. So we have at the output we have this voltage. Of course, the slope of these straight lines, these are straight lines, its slope increases with, if we decrease the capacitance, the slope increases. Additionally, if we keep constant the capacitance, the slopes increases with the current, of course. But on our low noise amplifier, normally we don't have this capacitor. We implement here the feedback and so on. So this circuit and of course the remaining circuits on this kind of technology is supplied with 1.8 volt. We can see here simulation. We have the closed loop gain of our low noise amplifier. It presents a 39 dB gain spanned from 2 Hz up to 6 kHz. So the bandwidth at 3 dB is 2.4 kHz. Basically, this low noise amplifier covers the range of extracellular recorded spikes normally at 106 kHz with 30.6 dB. So at 6 kHz we have only 30.6 dB, so 34% below 39 dB. It's an acceptable gain. We also made a few simulations to test the real-time situation. In reality, we extremely exaggerated these real-time situations for validation of the circuit. So we made in the first simulation we assumed that the wires have 10 ohms of resistance. In the second situation, we have a huge capacitance, series capacitance in the wires. And in the third situation, we placed a huge capacitor in parallel with the differential input of the amplifier. So we used a sinusoidal wave with 1 kilohertz frequency and 200 microvolt peak to peak. The output was 18.5 millivolt peak to peak with a gain of approximately 39.3 dB. So we didn't notice any change. So we expect this low noise amplifier will be very reliable in a real-time application. We also designed an active notch filter using transconductors. These blocks are similar to the operational transcontance amplifier presented below. On selecting the bias current, we can adjust this transcontance. The transfer function of this circuit is given by this function here. It has a second order response. We have double zero and two poles. Zero, of course, must be adjusted to 60 Hz. So this frequency must be equal to 60 Hz or 50 Hz in Europe. And the poles are given by this formula. The poles are not important, but we must ensure that this value must be higher than 1, okay, to avoid imaginary components in the poles. Basically, if we have any kind of imaginary component, we will have the risk to this circuit presents oscillations. So let's see the simulation. Once again, the transconductors uses the same topology, and once again, this capacitor is not used. Capacitor is only used to simulate the behavior of the transconductor. So with C1 equal to 6.5 picofarad, C2 equal to 8 picofarad, and this bias current here. Of course, this 26 microampere will be multiplied to about an order of magnitude of about nanoampere here to have a very small transconductance. GM1 is equal to GM2. So we have here the simulation of the combined behavior of low noise amplifier and notch filter. We can see here a notch frequency at 60 Hz. If we change the bias current here, we can we can change this frequency. So basically this simulation is equal to the previous one. Gain is almost equal. The only difference is we are subtracting the notch behavior. So let's see a transient simulation. We have two components, x1 and x2. x1 is our interference at 60 Hz, and x2 is our useful signal. The useful signal and interference are represented in blue in 6 simulations. Each simulation was done with both amplitudes equal to 20 microvolt peak to peak. F1 is 60 Hz, and the useful signal was simulated with these 6 frequencies: 10, 50, 70, 100, 1000 and 6000. So in red we can see the output after the notch and the LNA. So we can see here in red this signal has a frequency of 10 Hz. So this is 100 milliseconds, and this huge variation is the interference. And now we have here the clean, our signal almost cleaned. So we have here our signal with 50 Hz. 50 Hz was selected because it's very close to 60. We can see here a slight variation of 60. Here we have the 70 Hz. Once again, is very close to 60 Hz. And then we have here 100 Hz. It's a very clean signal. And then with the 1000 Hz, it's very difficult to show simulation, but we can see here almost clean signal. We can see here a slight remain of the interference, and here with the 6000 Hz you can see the interference was strongly reduced with this notch filter. This opens good perspectives for the implementation of deep brain stimulation. So we can see here the chip layout and photograph. It must be noted that the micro device was not yet tested. We have here the low noise amplifier, notch filter. You can see here low noise, notch filter. We can see few artworks: Donkey Kong, Our Wives. We was free designed, Professor João Navarro, myself, João Carmo, and Professor Maximilian Loop. And then we also have here the logo of our university of São Paulo, and then we can see here the Sabre Wolf game. It's interesting. These structures are ASD protections for these circuits. For information, we have here a mixer, and here an optical sensor with readout electronics. We can see here a matrix of 16 photodetectors. These photodetectors are N plus P sub photodiodes. Now let's see our second prototype designed on TSMC 65 nanometer CMOS. The low noise amplifier is almost equal C1 is equal to 20 picofaraday and C2 equal to 200 femtofaraday, which means that the gain is equal to 100 or 20 uh, par, uh, pardon 40 dB. Okay, now it's correct. We can see here this circuit is not anymore an operational transconductance amplifier. This circuit is a real operational amplifier. This part, this acts as a nota, and this acts as a common source amplifier. So these two components forms a complete operational amplifier. These capacitors and this MOSFET is for frequency compensation. This M7 MOSFET acts as a resistance. I forgot to mention in the previous prototype, this voltage is equal to the supply voltage divided by 2, because both the OTA before and this operational amplifier, they are supplied with a positive voltage and zero voltage, which means that we have a common mode voltage. This common mode voltage is equal to half of the voltage supply. So our signal will span around this common voltage. We must bias the inputs because we have MOSFET, so we must have here a DC voltage. This DC voltage for a bias, it's equal to the common mode voltage given by this voltage. So both the inputs and the output will have the same common voltage. We cannot forget that this C1 will cut any DC voltage, so we must provide from the output to the inputs, to the negative input, and here from here to the positive input. So this schematic was wrong. The inputs were swapped. Okay, so the resistors are used for provide the common voltage in the inputs, and capacitors C2 were used to provide the gain. However, we have a collateral damage. It's the pole introduced by the combination of this resistance and this capacitance, which must be very close to 0 Hertz. Okay, and once again, for this reason, these resistances must be implemented using pseudo resistors with a resistance of about 10 Hertz. We can see here another simulation. These circuits are supplied with 1.2 voltage. However, it's described in the literature solutions using 1 volt and even 0.5 volts to supply these circuits. However, the most suitable voltage to supply these circuits in order for the measurements agree with simulation is with 1.2 volt. So we have here the open loop gain of the operational amplifier. It's not big. With this technology, it's very difficult to have a gain so big. So we have an open loop gain of 60 dB, and when we feedback our circuit, the gain is 40 dB, so, and the bandwidth measured at 3 dB is about 5 kilohertz. So we simulation shown again a closed loop gain of 39 dB spanned across the from 6 Hz up to 30 kilohertz with a 3 dB bandwidth of 5.9 kilohertz. So once again it covers the range of extracellular recorded spikes from 1 up to 220 kilohertz with 30.3 dB. So this gain is about 36.4% below the nominal gain of 39 dB. It's acceptable also. So we can see the simulation showing the resistance on a logarithmic scale. So it's almost 12. So 12 is tera ohm. It's almost tera ohm. So this simulation was done. So we have here the pseudo resistor, and we applied here a voltage, and of course we measured the current, and then we divide the voltage by the current, and we obtain this simulation. We cannot forget that we have here the VCM in the input, and the output we also have the VCM, but we also have a sum of the output signal, and which means that this voltage can change. It's not constant. So for this reason we made a simulation changing the voltage from minus 250 millivolt up to 250 volt positive. So we saw that we proved that the resistance is in the order of magnitude of tera ohm. So we also also simulated the notch file using the same topology. However, the capacitances were changed. C1 now is 8.76 picofarad and C2 6.26 picofarad. So we have here the simulation of the combination of LNEA and the notch filter at 60 Hz. Once again we have here a notch frequency, and the gain is almost 40 dB. This plot is the phase. Of course, here the phase is higher than in model. Its model is higher than 316, which means that we must here we must add 316 degrees in order to pull this shape upwards. So this don't any means the phase don't have any means with or without this correction. I believe anyone understands this phenomena. So once again we made a few simulations. We have here signals with two components, x1 and x2. X1 is the interference at 60 Hz, and X2 is the useful signal. Both amplitudes are equal to 200 microvolt peak-to-peak volt, and the frequency of our useful signal are also, once again, are equal to 10, 50, 70, 100, 1000, and 60,000. We can see here the interference. These signals don't have good shape, but when they pass through the LNA and the notch filter, they signals became beautiful without without the interference, or with the interference strongly reduced. So we can see here 10 Hz, 50 Hz, 70 Hz, 100, 1000, and 6000 Hz. So the notch file makes its job. We also designed an asynchronous analog to digital converter. This ADC has a few innovations. Apart being an asynchronous ADC, the innovation is this block, the bootstrap, the switch, and the capacitance matrix itself used in the DAC. The analog to digital converter is a successive approximation architecture. We have here the switches, we have here the DAC, the comparator is dynamic, and then we have here the asynchronous logic and the output register with the digital output and the signal telling us that the conversion ended. So we can analyze the performance for different sampling frequencies. So this table is only for our ADC for several sampling frequencies. This is the figure of merit. It's the power consumption divided by sample frequency and multiplied by to raise it to the n-ob. So we have here the figure of merit. It is interesting to observe that for neural applications with for the range of few 10 for a few kilohertz in this here we can see a low power consumption. Of course, if we start to operating at megasamples per second, the power consumption increases, but it's still low. Now let's compare with the other works. The most important comparison features are the figure of merit. We can define two figures of merit, the first one and second. So this is our work, and these are a few similar architectures of SAR ADCs. The complete details can be found on this paper. We can see here the layout we have here. We can see that the capacitors array occupies the almost the used area. Now let's see the chip layout with the artwork. Here we have the low noise amplifier. Here we have the notch filter. Here we have a low pass filter. It's tunable. And here, where is it? Here we have a chopper circuit. Uh, Here we have a second version of the low noise amplifier, and here a second version of the notch filter. And we we can see here the analog to digital converter, and another few circuits from other students. We can see here few artworks. We can identify here our Captain President Bolsonaro, the great man. So this my micro devices was submitted to Fundry through Europractice program. So we are about to receive the chips maybe on February of next year, and then to test. The final the targeted application, as it was stated before in this presentation, is to implement compact solutions with wireless transmission for deep brain stimulation. We have stimulation circuits. I forgot to mention them. Stimulator circuit is somewhere here. I don't remember. I believe. Okay, the stimulator circuit is this rectangle here, and this is the one of the low noise amplifiers, and this is another low noise amplifier. This capacitors occupies an, an higher area than this one, because it, these two low noise amplifiers were designed by two different persons. So, would you like to know more? Uh, you are free to visit our website of our group from the metamaterials microwave and optical group. You can find here the address, or my personal web page. You can see here the address. So thank you for your attention. For any question, you are free to send me an email. The email is found in the beginning of the presentation. So thank you, and have a nice day.